Section 4. Why are there colors? Having established to his satisfaction that robots can discriminate colors as effectively as humans, Dennett goes on to ask why colors exist. He starts by pointing out that their existence in the real world is not as simple as often assumed. The, quote, appealing idea that each color can be associated with a unique wavelength of light, and hence that the property of being red is simply the property of reflecting all the red wavelength light and absorbing all the other wavelengths. But this has been known for quite some time to be false. Surfaces with different fundamental reflective properties can be seen as the same color, and the same surface under different conditions of lighting can be seen as different colors. The wavelengths of the light entering the eye are only indirectly related to the colors we see objects to be, end quote. There is no simple property of surfaces such that all and only the surfaces with that property are red in Locke's secondary quality sense. This can be seen as negative since it suggests that our perceptual grip on the world is much worse than we believe, that we are living in a dream world or are victims of mass delusion. Quote, our color vision does not give us access to simple properties of objects, even though it seems to. Why should this be so? Just bad luck? Second-rate design? Not at all, says Dennett. Then he develops a long explanation as to why we see colors based on a recognition code used by the atomic spies Julius and Ethel Rosenberg. What they did was to tear in half the side of a cardboard Jell-O box. This could then be used by two individuals unknown to each other, but who had to be very careful about identifying each other. As Dennett explains, quote, each ragged piece became a practically foolproof and unique detector of its mate. At a later encounter, each party could produce his piece, and if the pieces lined up perfectly, all would be well. Why does this system work? Because tearing the cardboard in two produces an edge of such informational complexity that it would be virtually impossible to reproduce by deliberate construction, end quote. In other words, there would be no reason for either of the ragged cardboard edges to exist, to have been created, in the absence of the other. Dennett claims that the same thing is true of colors and color vision. They were made for each other. He points out that we tend to think of color coding as the clever modern invention, but this misses the fact that natural color vision co-evolved from the outset with colors. For example, the color vision of insects co-evolved with the colors of the plants they pollinated. Quote, a good trick of design that benefited both. Without the color coding of the flowers, the color vision of the insects would not have evolved, and vice versa, end quote. So our color vision system is very complex physically and neurophysiologically, but its operations are guided by a very simple function. Dennett argues that it was this evolutionary need to identify fruit that led to the creation of color in the world. Quote, "Once there were creatures who could distinguish red from green berries, they could also distinguish red rubies from green emeralds. But this was just a coincidental bonus. The fact that there is a difference in color between rubies and emeralds can thus be considered to be a derived color phenomenon. Why is the sky blue? Because apples are red and grapes are purple, not the other way round. It is a mistake to think that first there were colors, colored rocks, colored water, colored sky, reddish-orange rust, and bright blue cobalt. And then Mother Nature came along and took advantage of those properties by using them to color code things. It is rather that first there were various reflective properties of surfaces, reactive properties of photopigments, and so forth. And Mother Nature developed out of these raw materials efficient, mutually adjusted color coding / color vision systems. And among the properties that settled out of that design process are the properties we normal human beings call colors. If the blue of cobalt and the blue of a butterfly's wing happen to match in normal human beings' vision, this is just a coincidence, a negligible side effect of the processes that brought color vision into existence." End quote.